the very best guide to Revelation ever written, is available for free. It's indispensable for understanding all the intricacies of those chapters that are fascinating at the very end of the New Testament. In fact, I would argue that Revelation remains a closed book if you don't look at it through this study guide. And this study guide is what we call the Old Testament, because hardly a verse goes by in Revelation where John doesn't in some way allude to the Old Testament. He borrows all kinds of imagery from Isaiah and Daniel and Ezekiel and all over the Old Testament. So without the Old Testament, you're not going to understand Revelation. Now, let me give you just one tiny example. At the end of Revelation, chapter 21, John is describing the new Jerusalem that comes down out of heaven. And he says this. He says, its length and height and width are equal, and the city was pure gold. Now, if you take that idea of a cube-shaped New Jerusalem and you go back to, for instance, 2 Chronicles chapter 3, this is how the Holy of Holies is described. Its length corresponding to the breadth of the house was 20 cubits, and its breadth was 20 cubits. In other words, it was cube-shaped, and it was covered in fine gold. You put those two things together, and what do you learn? The New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven, where God dwells with his people, is the new and the better Holy of Holies. This is where we will live with our good and gracious God forever, in this new Holy of Holies, the New Jerusalem.